Hello, all. Sorry that we are late. I do apologize. We had a lot of meaty things to discuss at the executive board meeting, and we ran a little overtime. So let's go ahead with a review of the agenda items.
Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. McGill.
We have the public hearing consideration for the enactment of an ordinance to amend the Mount Lebanon Code to include the newly enacted ordinances or amendments to existing ordinances that have been enacted since January 24th of 2023. This is the codification that we do every year. We have the consideration of a resolution approving an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with Aetna. And also a consideration of a resolution approving an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with Churchill. These are the agreements that Andrew McCreary detailed for the commission earlier at a earlier discussion meeting, very similar to what we're working and doing most of all. We have the consideration for the award of a number of contracts. Some are new, some are renewals. Those are our backwater valve maintenance, our sanitary sewer manhole rehabilitation, our sanitary and sewer lining, sanitary storm and sanitary point repair contract, chemical root treatment, our annual storm and sanitary cleaning and televising, and our corrective action repair or sanitary. There are also a number of agenda items to consider the purchase of vehicles for public works that were approved as part of the 2024 budget. Those are as follows: one ready-to-use four-wheel drive Ford F-350 truck. That will be the plumber's vehicle. One ready-to-use four-wheel drive F-350 truck. That will be the sign shop line painting vehicle. And then one ready-to-use four-wheel drive snowplow truck. And last but not least, we also have the consideration for one Tarco Windy 40 leaf loader. That's the trailer mounted device that they used.
Snuffleupagus.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is the Fire Training Center
Yes,
and Public Works Storage Building.
yes.
Lest we forget.
Good evening, everybody. With me tonight is Kevin Nadel. Some of you know Kevin from before. He's our person, building expert in the Gateway, and I've asked him to be here tonight. We wanted to go over the Public Works expansion and Fire Training Center, just to give the commission an idea of what the plan is and what to expect in 2024 as we move through this project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
Good evening, everybody. So as Dan kind of led off, we're here to talk about Public Works expansion and then the Fire Training Center. Just a quick overview of what I wanted to go through in my 15 minutes. The scope and the budget for that project. We'll take a look at the site plan and then also the schematics for the Fire Training Center, so you can kind of see what that is, what that looks like. And then we'll go through some next steps as we kind of move through this process and the next things that the commission will see. So the scope of the project, sort of two parts to it. One is the Public Works expansion. So everybody who was here, that's 2018, the original Public Works expansion. One of the alternate bids was to install an additional storage building, which ultimately didn't get awarded. So this is sort of a follow-up to that. This building, the new building that we're proposing is a little bit smaller than what that was. I believe that was 40 by 80 before. So now it's 40 by 60.
This would be between that current storage building, the salt zone, just.
Yeah, so
what gets the picture of where that building.
yeah, we can jump to the site plan real quick. You see my mouse, I don't have a pointer. This is the shooting, the range down here. That second entrance that was put in as part of the expansion project. This is salt dome, or the salt shed. These are eventually where some storage bins will be. This is the new proposed Public Works storage garage. This is the existing garage that was built on that expansion. And then this is the Fire Training Center. So getting back to the scope, the Public Works expansion, it'll be a pre-engineered metal building. It will be designed so that it matches the other buildings in the aesthetics, CMU block around the bottom, metal on top. It'll have,
The aesthetics.
well, it'll blend in at least.
Yes, it's fine.
Within that building, what we're aiming for is sort of termed it minimal electric, but basically convenience outlets. And lights will have some convenience outlets outside. The plan is to bring power that's in the existing garage over to that new garage. So it still stays under the existing service that we have. And then we've also got a small bridge crane that will be part of this. So Public Works will be using that bridge crane to offload equipment off of the truck if they're pulling snow plows off, anything big and heavy. So really sort of a safety thing there. Budget for the engineer's estimate for that is $530,000 for that work. And then Fire Training Center, so that's a new modular building. If anybody's seen the schematics,
Yep.
sort of sea cans kind of stacked on top of each other. That's got a quote of $701,000 for the purchase and install of that. The center, so that's the boxes. There's an additional $30,000 that we need for the engineering of that so that we get steel or stamped and sealed plans. Obviously, that'll be part of the building permit process and everything. And then we've got some site work that'll happen with that facility at $120,000. The plan is that we will bid the Public Works expansion, which would be building, foundation, site work for that, and then also the site work and the foundations for the Fire Training Center under one contract.
Mhm.
And then you'll have the install of the Fire Training Center under a separate, the CoStarz contract. Total project cost all in is 1.4 million. We talked about the site plan and how that looks, and then I believe these were zoom in. I think I can zoom in, but we did have a couple schematics that you kind of see what that's gonna look like from the street.
Yep.
And then these are the schematics for the Fire Training Center. So the lowest can here is sort of out front and it grows as it goes towards the back, towards the hillside. Any questions on the Fire Training Center? And then so timeline that we put together for this, our goal, we'll be bidding this here shortly. So essentially through February. One of the things that we want to move on quickly is awarding that CoStarz contract to Howe Rescue. So Draeger is the company that's supplying this. The CoStarz contract comes through Howe Rescue. Is to award that as soon as we can. They've sort of done us a favor of locking in last year's pricing. That we got it and we got the quote sort of at the end of the year to lock that in. So we want to get that moving. You would see the award for the general construction contract for the building at the March 12th meeting. For award, we're estimating we'd start in May, probably got a 4-month duration to put up, get the site work done, get the foundations done, get the building up. And then the Fire Training Center is a little bit of a longer lead time item. When I talked to them late last week, they were targeting a late fall, early winter. Was sort of when that would fit in, that they would have that thing ready to come install.
They bring it in by truckload, like a storage thing at a time? Fascinating. Yeah.
Just one minor correction, Kevin, and you wouldn't have known this. The meeting in March, the first meeting in March is actually on Monday, the 11th. We moved that meeting because the conflict with the PelRes conference that a number of us attend, so just so that you have it for your schedule.
We're awaiting our grant.
We have a $200,000 grant that was already received that we need to expend by the end of 2024. We have a commitment from the Volunteer Association for another $100,000. And Greg Wharton has submitted a grant for an additional $1 million. So I'm not sure of the timing of the award of that latest grant application. But we've got $300,000 already committed to the project, and we're hopeful that we may not get the full $1 million, but hopefully we'll get some additional funds as well.
I'm just, we can talk about this, but we just want to make sure that by awarding a contract and when it's awarded and how it's awarded, that we don't give up our ability to use the grant.
Correct.
If we get
And we'll
Yeah.
go through and verify that with Greg in
Yeah.
terms of what
What,
the.
what they say.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that there is a timing issue with a lot of those grants in terms of when you bid a project versus when.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay,
Great,
that's it.
thanks. Exciting stuff. Any questions? None of the rest of you have questions. Yeah, everybody's nodding. Okay. All right. Now, small water and sewer grant, Beg Snyder Park.
So, Dennis Flynn, who you guys have met before, he's everything consent order. Dennis in our office worked to make application for a small water and sewer grant, which we were fortunate enough, the municipality was to obtain that award of that grant. So we're here just to talk about what that is and what you guys can expect to see as we move through this project. Turn it over to Dennis and
Wait,
All right, so, again, as Dan mentioned, it's nice to see you all again. We were actually in front of you and talked specifically, bless you, the Beg Snyder Park project previously, but it was back in November of 2022. That's when this grant application was actually submitted. It was that long before we had heard on the award of the project. We did just receive word that it was awarded in December of this past year. With that, I'll review a little bit as to what that means, what the award of the project is, and go back through kind of the basics of the project again, just to give everybody, or get everybody familiarized again with it. So it was December 2023, it was announced that we were awarded for $422,000. The cost estimate that we used for the grant was $499,496 for the total project cost. This grant, the small water and sewer grant, actually had a cap of $500,000, so
I was wondering why you picked that number.
kind of fit in there. So this grant will actually cover 84% of the total project cost. So there's only a 16% match that is required by the municipality then. Again, that the $422,000 was what we had requested. You can see this was the preliminary cost estimate that was used as part of the grant application. We'll go through some of those specifics that you see on the left-hand side in terms of the items included. And this was also a grant that we had applied previously for the GROW grant. You know, I've been here to talk on the GROW grant previously, so it's one that we already had ready to go to submit. The picture on the right here is actually from a manhole just near this, where the manhole has surcharged in the past. There's some flooding. I think it's the one that Rudy had sent along to me from one of the residents there. So this project actually includes 50 lineal feet of sewer replacement. We're replacing a sewer within the stream. I'll show you some photos of that. A lot of it's CIPP line, that's manhole to manhole lining. It's a pipe within the pipe. And that gets back to a lot of the overall consent order items that we've talked about before, removing some of the additional flow that's making its way into the sewer. There's also a handful of manholes that are being rehabilitated just in our review. It runs right along the stream through there. So those manholes allow some leaking and some of the stream to make it directly in. So by rehabilitating those, it would help eliminate some of that flow making its way into the system. And then there are a couple of new manholes that will need to be reinstalled so that we can adjust the height of that crossing through the stream. And then lastly, some stream restoration throughout. You can see here actually even included is a video of the manhole that is just across the stream. You can see in the, I guess, right at about 1 o'clock, right below the smaller diameter pipe, there's some additional flow which appears to be coming into the line. That's one of the key parts of this project. The photo on the left shows a sanitary pipe that's actually out into the stream. What we believe is happening here is that the water is following that pipe and making its way directly into the manhole. So the water from the stream is making its way directly into the manhole and leading to excessive flows within our system. So with that, we did perform survey all through here so that we had a better understanding of the stream and the locations of the sewers. Check the capacity of the lines here. There was also previous reports of some diameter changes, but we confirmed that the diameters stay consistent throughout here. So there's no additional excavation required. And then the photo that we see here too, the exposed sewer within the stream was kind of the main culprit. So we knew that we would need to lower that sewer and concrete encase it under the stream. This is just a conceptual design that we have based on the survey that was completed, showing that we would need to drop a new manhole in. The exact location of that manhole along that line will need to be kind of finalized as part of the final design, just because it does run fairly close to the back of those homes, as you can see. But that manhole would need to be dropped in so that we can adjust the elevation of that pipe. But
You're gonna help that resident out, that residents experience flooding there
right.
already.
And that is just an 8-inch line that collects just a handful of homes right along there.
So how do you lower the line? Do you tunnel underneath or do you?
We would
Open it up
excavate,
and-
so
Yeah,
we would
excavate.
need to perform excavation within the stream, and I'll get to that a little bit
Okay.
in our timeline, because that will require additional permitting, obviously,
Yeah, thanks.
with crossing the stream. But we would not just change the elevation, but we would concrete encase it too,
Yeah.
so that hopefully something like this does not
Not
happen
happen
again
again,
in the future. And leave hopefully enough of it buried so that it doesn't become exposed again. This is an overall, just so you can see kind of the larger picture of the area that we're dealing with. The dark black line is the Dormont, Mount Lebanon line. This was called the Begg Snyder Park project because of Begg Snyder Park, Keystone Oak School right there. This is also an area that was on our consent order, Exhibit B, in terms of requiring a corrective action. That's why we're also doing this lining work that you see through here. Everything in yellow is to be lined. And that is because this was deemed to be a very, very wet area, or had a lot of inflow and infiltration making its way into the system.
Dennis, is that red line's the sewer shed?
This red line right here,
Yeah,
yes,
the perimeter
yeah, the
line.
perimeter red line is the sewer shed. That's the 92622.
So all of that area, all of those homes flow into that.
Yeah, so there's a larger piece of Dormont which also flows to this. And there has been some multi-municipal coordination with Dormont in regards to this as well. And this main line that comes through here is anticipated to be part of the Alcoasand regionalization. But we also want to make sure that we're doing what's necessary to meet the current consent order obligations. The other red line that's here is the proposed line replacement. So that's the dark red line that's shown. On the right here, that is the Exhibit B. I know it's very small, it'd be hard to read, but that is our Exhibit B that came with your consent order and determine your requirement for the order. Like I stated, we have 7 locations where we have to lower the flow to get below that gold line standard or that threshold. We have 2 others where we're tributary to an SSO. So this is one of those areas that is above that gold line standard and would require reduction anyway. See the current flow there in terms of the inflow and infiltration or gallons per inch mile a day, the GPIMD, 4,280. We need to meet the threshold of 4,093. Based on initial calculations, this project should get us below that, but I always like to leave that caveat of it's not a perfect science. Flow will go somewhere else. We're hoping that the big piece of this is removing that stream from making its way in, and that flow will stay within the stream, but there's always the private side or other areas where that flow can make its way in.
It's not a huge overage compared to some of the other ones we had. Is that just like really heavy when we see those overflows?
Well, so this actually, the gallon per inch mile a day isn't directly related to the overflows, because that's looking at annually throughout the entire year. So that is the basis of your order. We actually don't have a sanitary sewer overflow listed on our order for this area. But we do know that we do have manholes that pop through there, so this project will really help with that. The surcharging that you see during a storm or something like that. But it will also help all that manhole to manhole lining that we're doing will help with the elimination of the I&I at the same time. So it's kind of a twofold project. We're taking care of a lot of issues in the area all at once. The one other item, so we had it, like I stated earlier, we had applied for GROW grant funding previously. At the time, because of the whole stream component, Alcosan wasn't sure about it. They've been out to the site and seen it. So that's something else we can apply for future GROW grant funding. It wouldn't affect our project. We continue to proceed with it. But at this point, if we get additional reimbursement so that we get additional funding towards the project, it doesn't hurt. And we've been successful. Mount Lebanon's been very successful on some of those GROW grants, so it doesn't hurt to apply for that.
So the GROW Grant program is the Alcosan program to incentivize municipalities to do innovative work in the system. And Dennis has done a great job of getting us a number of the GROW grants. And so in this case, what they would do is once he shows the flow reduction, they would give us a reimbursement back. So it can be post-project even.
Nice.
Again, here, this is just a blow up of the area specifying on kind of Mount Lebanon's portion. Then the project timeline, do you want to mention that this is a very conservative kind of timeline with the anticipation of submitting for the permits in April. So there's a large window there in between April and October between when we submit for the permits and when we finalize the bid specifications. That can be truncated a little bit. We would plan to proceed with that a little quicker, but based on this timeline, as you proceed through bidding and award and starting construction, this would follow in line with the requirements of the consent order. Again, this will meet your requirement in terms of the reduction, which require that projects are performed in 2025 and completed by the end of 2025. So with this very conservative schedule, we still meet that timeline. Like I said, it would be hopeful to potentially even move that up a little bit as we get permits along the way.
And it's that permit application goes to who?
This permit application would go to the health department or conservation district, because it is just a general permit. That's all we're expecting at this time. Yeah, just a general permit.
They've been running about 3 months and we're not sure. We don't need any quite 2 permits. We've got them.
Right, now, we're not changing capacity or.
So we would anticipate this was accelerated, but I think Dennis was just trying to prove that we'll meet the consent order deadline no matter what.
Even if there was something
Yeah.
that they wanted additional along the permitting process.
Yes.
Great.
I just wanted to note for this group, I did thank Representative Miller, in a letter on behalf of the municipality and the commission. It's my understanding these were very competitive grants. So I'm sure that his advocating for the municipality was beneficial in this receiving that award. So thank you again to Representative Miller.
Great.
I think they mentioned across the state, there was about 2,000 applications or something along those lines, so Yeah, it was big to get it awarded.
Great. Any other questions from commissioners? The South Garage. Thank you,
Very
Dennis.
much. Bring Kevin back up for the return engagement. We're here to actually, well, last fall on the South Garage, we obviously reviewed the proposals that came in related to its condition. Out of that, there was a discussion that would proceed ahead with the required repairs to the garage. Kevin's just here to give an overview of that project and the plan for 2024, and then sort of a skeleton of what we look like going forward for the next 5 years until the garage replacement happens.
Sorry, I'm trying to get on the shared screen up.
While Kevin's working on that, the commission is part of the
Sure.
2024 budget process. Did approve I'll say, a reuse study for that south garage structure. That will be completed in 2024. So we will sort of work these two in concert, if we're in a position to move forward without. We will put the least amount of repair money into the structure to get us to the point where we have a plan to move forward to whatever it's going to be in its next iteration.
While still keeping it in a safe condition.
Absolutely, sir.
Is
That's
it study of the reuse of the structure or reuse of the site?
reuse of the site, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That structure is up.
Structures.
Actually,
All right,
reached
that was a good-
reached the end of its useful life.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a much greater utility.
Yeah.
For the site.
Right.
In its next iteration.
Round it up and let's use it as aggregate.
Just want to bring it down in a more controlled manner.
Right. Yeah,
Bit
we
by
can have a
bit.
blow up party. Sorry.
I'll be out of town if you do that.
I have a little bit just of that history, just to remind everybody of the wonderful warm thoughts of the South Garage. We'll talk about just some of the options and costs, just to remind everybody, and then we'll get into sort of what we're planning on doing on year one, next steps for that, and then a
Great.
little bit of just a very brief look at it. So as everybody recalls, and this stuff was, from a few months back, so it is a cast in place garage. One of the big issues is that cathodic protection system that was retrofitted into the garage a few years ago. If everybody just sees it, is pretty big garage, and obviously very important, which is why we want to keep this thing functioning, and you'll kind of see is what we focus on here. So built originally in 1966, a major rehab and cathodic protection in 91. And then in 04, we made some repairs, and then 13 through 15 was the last time that we were making structural repairs to the garage. So as Dan said, we contracted Walker Consultants in the summer of last year. They came in, did a study. Their goal, determine the condition, and then options for what could we do. Their summary, obviously, there's some areas that are in okay condition. There's a number of areas that are in poor conditions. Product protection doesn't function. Lots of issues with the concrete slabs. And then one of the things that came out of that was there was this option for minimal repairs to kind of quote unquote limp this thing along until we really have to make a decision, which we're working on what that decision is. Those options ranged from 7 to 11 million, depending on the repair method chosen. There, of course, it's a cost to just demolish the garage. And then our recommended and sort of selected option was this minimal repairs, which we sort of initially ballparked at somewhere around 150 to 300,000 a year, to kind of keep this thing moving along in a safe condition, and still function. So, and then in the conclusions, it was there before, there was a pretty expensive minimum rehab to get, I believe that was 20 years of life out of the garage. And then we definitely had to do the minor repairs. So in our next steps and what we're focusing on this year, is design and bidding, year one repairs. So the focus is going to be on structural repairs to the entrance bridge. That was the very first thing that we hit the last time we were here back in 2013. That's also obviously critical that that thing stays in.
No Fern Hollow. That's what
That,
he's saying.
but
No Fern Hollow.
but also for the function of the garage and making sure that we've got our way on and off of the- or I guess onto, the garage. We've also got a repair of the pretty large expansion joint, and if you can see my mouse, that's sort of under
Yeah,
here.
see it.
And then we've got an estimated cost for year one at 247,000. And you can kind of see some of the photos. So this is right where as you come onto the bridge, if you look to the right, there used to be a light pole there. So you can kind of see, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's a pretty sizable crack, which is something we want to take care of. You can also see some typical photos from underneath the deck and what kind of condition that is, and then also some typical photos of some of the deterioration in the stairs. So those will be our focuses, for year one. What we're anticipating is sort of the same schedule for bidding out, public works, so we'll be bidding that through February. You will see that not on March 12th, but you'll see it on March 11th. For your consideration, we would again plan to start that in May, but there's a little bit of float in there, and then we would think that takes about 3 months. One of the things is there is going to be some impact to that entrance ramp. In the past, we've managed to get people in and out of level 3.
We bring them up.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm in that.
yeah, and so that would be while we need the bridge shut down. So it's still, the garage would still function. And then future work, or any questions on what we're planning for this year? And then, so future work, years 2 through 5, we've just got a very rough budget of 150 to 250,000. But basically we would start in 2025, which would be year 2 at the exterior deck. One of the other things noted was the attachment of those facade, the vertical panels.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple of those connections that just need some attention, so we'll make those get addressed again, so that something doesn't come off of the building. And then in subsequent years, we'll sort of work our way down each level, which was essentially what we did the last time we were here. We started at the top and worked our way down. And quick site image, I can do that pretty quickly, and
Questions?
Yeah. What do we have in the works, if anything, to? I know we've got rec study, we've got comp plan that discusses the south garage, but we really haven't moved anything to the point where anything's really fine. So, I mean, the previous slide, you can go back to that timeline with the costs. I mean, I think we all decided that the 150 to 250 or whatever it works out to per year is the best way to go for now until we figure it out, but I don't think we have to wait until 2028 to figure it out.
No, and that's,
That was the goal, is to try and get it done as soon as possible. Hey, if we get it done by year 3, awesome.
Yeah, so the question is, what do we do? How do we move this to the point where, because we the rec center doesn't have to be there, right? It doesn't have to be only a parking garage, but we haven't had discussions about what do we do and what's a real timeline for this? We have the engineering timeline for the repairs, which is like the base minimum. The question is for us, what do we want to do with this and what's the timeline with which we want to do it? You know, like setting a goal for this, like, hey, let's figure out what we want to do by the end of 2024, so that in 2025, we can start talking about money, because whatever we do, there's not going to be cheap.
The manager said when we started, there's a study that's already.
Yeah, we'll put the RFP out for that. We'll award that study to be done this year. One of the big decision points here will be, I'll say, what is going to actually constitute that site? Is it going to just simply be what it is now? Is there an opportunity to acquire additional, I'll say, land area to make it into something different? It really depends on what we go through as part of that study and what those numbers look like, and then ultimately what the commission would like to see there as a, I'll say, a final or a finished product. To the question of timing, Craig's right. We have talked about doing a bond issue in 2025 because we know that we've got a number of the comp plan, the parks master plan, the master site plan, and the rec center study. This project alone, just for the demo cost, Kevin,
$1.4 million.
that number's almost. Yeah, so, you know, if you add in whatever it wants to be from a construction standpoint, you know, I'm gonna tell you that you're probably, you know, $10 to $15 million. And that's just my ballpark number. But there's a lot of pieces to this.
Right.
Do we also try to determine, does this make sense for a public-private partnership? We try to pull a developer in who wants to develop something on that site in conjunction with the functional piece, which is the park.
I mean, presumably a study would present those options to us. So
Right.
do we have that study RFP outlined yet in terms of what we're asking them to do? I don't think we've weighed in on even what we thought should be in there.
We do not have that outlined yet. I'll defer to Mr. McMeans because he and Andrew will probably work jointly on.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit during the budget presentations. Because we budgeted money out of the parking fund to do this year. And my goal is to get the RFP out by the end of the first quarter, because I did meet with an architect last year who has done parking garage projects in the region before, to kind of get some background on what all would go into an RFP for this kind of feasibility study, that we could layer the feasibility study over top of, you know, the comp plan stuff. That then to present that whole package as a, you know, potential second RFP for a public-private partnership if we wanted to go that route.
I think the commission has to come up with some idea of what we want to see there. Like I think we're at the point where we need to do that before we start throwing RFPs into the world, because if we just throw an RFP out there and it's not aligned with what we all think should be going on, it's going to be a waste of a study.
Agreed. I agree.
I think we need some time to think and plan that and, you know, start having those discussions.
Well, I thought the RFP was gonna be kind of that blue sky research, if you will, to say, you could do this, you could do that, you could do the other thing, here's the space, here's, you know, would you provide us with some options?
I think if I'm hearing you right, correct me if I'm wrong. We're trying to narrow it down a little bit to, hey, you know, the sky is the limit, but we really think these are the components that we want to see in it. So we're not just throwing an RFP out on the street.
I think there's probably
but,
some suggestion of what might be
Yeah.
the best use that we might have and.
What we think the best use
Right,
is.
right. And then with Craig, it's like, there's some urgency.
Yeah.
I mean, just like it's throwing good money after bad at some point.
I think we miss an opportunity if all we do is look at this as, let's replace it with another parking garage.
Agreed. Yeah, I think
everybody's
everyone
agreed.
agrees with you.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan. Just asking, do you all think we need a separate discussion session that we dedicate to this? You know, almost like what you and I are familiar with is design charrette. Obviously, we're not designing it, but we're throwing things up against the wall.
Conceptual ideas.
Yeah.
That we can use as a little bit of a filter for an RFP and for potential ideas to come back.
Something like that. Think about when the consultant brought in,
Right.
something from Main Park, and we looked and said, it's good, this is bad. Something we can sort of spitball around and say, we like that, we don't like that. Doesn't have to be some
We do
finished
have some
document.
of that in the
But we have some get some
Yeah.
ideas together.
Even if we just talk about a couple ideas that we would like to see, I think that gives direction to whoever's doing the feasibility study to understand the world that we want to live in.
Right.
And to
Yeah.
help Ian pull the RFP
RFP
together in terms of, to Craig's point, even if it's just the conceptuals that you'd like to be considered,
Yep.
so that you've narrowed that,
Yes.
Mhm.
so that those could be identified. in the
Right,
RFP.
I don't know
to
that-
get more detail on what we generally, like what we probably want versus a lack of detail on everything.
Yeah, yeah, we don't need the sky's the limit.
Yeah. I mean, you know, in the past, we've done priority projects with Trant. I don't think we need
Yeah.
to go that far just for this, but, you know, some semblance of a meeting that we can dedicate to this conversation. It's probably better to do it like that than it is to try to, you know, banter about ideas on email between us. I don't think that's gonna be
I
helpful
agree.
there.
I think it's much better to do it in person and to have a give and take discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to some type of facilitator, but I would probably prefer somebody that's more in the built environment kind of thing that could
There's some
maybe direct us a little bit.
Yeah, and even just understanding some,
Your type thing, is that who would be the facilitators,
Like an architect.
an architect?
yeah,
Forget those darn engineers.
but you know, I'm.
Everyone's just sitting at the table.
I'm giving them a hard time.
I'm sure there's, you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a few projects in
Yeah.
the
You need idea.
metro area that.
Yeah, we
could
need
focus on.
idea guys. Yeah, Dan, you probably would have some good suggestions for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that'd be helpful. I think it'd be worthwhile because if we can shortcut this and not spend
right.
4 years of 300 grand,
Right.
it's money we could put into whatever project we end up doing.
Sure.
Well, in reality, by the time you get through a study, you determine, borrow your
Another
money,
year.
do everything else, you're gonna run right to the end of it. You're gonna be
Yeah,
ready
you're gonna
in
be
5
there.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the process, but
Yeah.
that's.
Okay.
Bring it all back down again.
Nothing goes quickly,
Yeah.
We should try.
especially a big project.
Yeah.
All delivered.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, marching orders taken. We'll get back to you on that. Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, yes. I didn't know that was like everybody else.
Okay, commission liaisons. Who's got
Okay.
reports?
Let's see,
meetings?
the planning board just met and approved some lot lines for some additional properties or properties to come on Beatling Road. So it's, could be, yep, it's, right now it's, yep, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
There's a house way back there.
Right, well, just between Beatling Road and that house,
Yeah,
there's a property that a developer said, I'd like to build some houses in that
yeah.
green space.
There's a road that goes back through there. It's small.
Well,
It's a driveway.
the proposed, right, but that driveway would stay because that services the house that's there.
Mhm.
These two properties would be some access off Beetling, and the last one would actually tie to James Place.
Really interesting. Huh. Very interesting.
I attended a Parks Board meeting and Sports Board meeting separately. Those two will come together to be our new Parks and Rec Board. I hadn't attended either one of those meetings in like 6 years. It was everything I remember it to be and so much more.
He's saying that in such a positive way, right?
They were good. So the Parks Board has been discussing the invasive species. What I had encouraged them to do is to bring their priority projects forward for that, you know, combining. The Sports Board put together and has been presenting data on the fields and the need for additional fields and the need for more efficiency in how we book fields and how we interact with the school board. I was very impressed with the data that was presented. I thought it was gonna be garbage, but it was really good. So a lot of information, a lot of additional context related to the needs of the municipality and all of our sports programs. A lot of information, a lot of conversations with clubs and parents and teams. And so they've got a lot of information down to, I mean, statistical analysis of very concrete recommendations into if we do these things, we will increase our efficiency by this much percent and provide X number of more field hours available. if we do this set of recommendations, we will increase field hours by this number of hours. It's very detailed. I would recommend that we put the sports board on a discussion session so they can present their findings to us. It's a very detailed
Okay, good.
PowerPoint presentation with a lot of data behind it. Probably need, 25 minutes, 30 minutes for an encapsulated version, but again, they have very detailed recommendations that I think once the boards merge, will come to the commission in a form of, these are concrete things we can do to solve for better field efficiency and creating more fields to drive the need that we have. The long and short of it is we're at like 96% field usage across all of our fields, across all of our sports. And they did this in conjunction with the school district as well. So there's a lot of school information in there and with David and the rec team. So it was a big operation. It was a big report and it's a lot of good info.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Andrew, anything?
So Connect has an executive committee meeting tomorrow, in Wilkinsburg. So I will be heading there. We are introducing new board nominees. The board is expanding. As I mentioned before, Connect is now a nonprofit. So the board is being restructured to include more members on the board, and board as you would traditionally think of it. So some non-municipal staff or electeds, some like industry experts are being proposed to join the board. And we also had a public safety and well-being group meeting last week. That meeting covered progress of the law enforcement assisted diversion program. They are now, I believe, at 10 communities. There are 150 participants that have been diverted through the program. So is it a program that is being expanded? That again, that program is much like what we are talking about with our police department and outreach and mental health programming. Again, it's that support network system. But this is a program that's being coordinated through Connect, part of the county, federal dollars are part of it. So it's a very good program. Also talked about the future of fire programming, consolidations happening there. And future programming around how do we do fire more efficiently, fire departments more efficiently. So work is happening there. So a variety of areas around public safety initiatives, other things happening, but that's the kind of the quick and dirty of where Connect is.
Great, thanks. Jeffrey.
The Historic Preservation Board meeting was canceled for this month because of the Steelers game. The partnership did not meet this month, and I attended the Chicago meeting last week and no comment.
Yeah, actually had a good time, I can tell. Library board meeting I attended last week. Thanks to Rudy for finding out some information on the elevator repair. It looks like the part is being shipped, we hope. Nodding his head affirmatively to get it fixed. It was
Do we have a guesstimate on when?
so the way it was gonna work, you correct me if I'm wrong, Rudy. The part supposedly shipped on Friday from the manufacturer to Schindler, I think it's Schindler. Schindler, once they receive it, will be calling Public Works to work with Public Works to schedule the actual repair.
We're gonna, and there's an interim step in there. Schindler will verify that it's the right part.
Yes, true, yes, yeah. That's
And
one
then
of those assumptions.
We will schedule a meeting actually over at the library to see what the impacts will be during the course of the installation, repair of the elevator to determine whether or not they may need to potentially shut down a portion of the library or the library for a specified period of time until they get to a point where they're able to reduce the work area. But Robin's already been looped into that conversation. She and Jeremy will be part of that meeting when we have it. So we're moving in the right direction is what I'm telling
Maybe hopefully by mid-February?
you. You're not getting a date out of me, so.
No.
Yeah, I gave you maybe and
I will give
hopefully,
you
I
a
gave
date
you
or
two
anything I
qualifiers.
No. And they are right now putting in the new equipment that will check in the library books, taking out the old one, putting in the new one. So they've asked that nobody return anything this week So I put my husband on notice since he goes daily to the library and tortures them. So I just said, you're not even allowed to go. We got that settled. Community Relations Board met, everything is going along fine there. The Residents Academy is up and running. Thanks to Laura for all the work she does on that. And Robin, that's a really great thing that is going on. So, am I missing anything? Robin, Laura? No, okay, all right, cool.
Can I give you a 30-second update since I went to the Hospital Authority Board meeting?
Yeah, you betcha.
Nothing really of note from that meeting. I will tell you that St. Clair Hospital, like all hospitals, is struggling a little bit from a personnel staffing standpoint and cost of personnel, but that's industry-wide. They do have some projects planned in the next calendar year. One of those is the creation of what they're calling an empath center, which will provide care specific to patients that may need some mental health, I'm sorry. It's a quieter area, it's low
Wow.
sensory, it's, and again, there's a model, I believe, out Forbes Regional may have a similar model, so again, moving that forward, but I had the opportunity to have a conversation because they're all our residents on the board, obviously. One of those residents is a woman by the name of Susan Gove, who is in her second, I believe, year on the board. We've had follow-up conversations, and she is drafting sort of what she's calling an onboarding packet for new board members. I'm going to try to expand that
Nice.
for our new boards
Yeah,
to
nice.
create it in
Mhm.
sort of a template form. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, the information for each board will be different, but at least we'll have a consistent format and template for that information. We've been going back and forth. I've actually asked Phil to weigh in on one or two of the details that are there. But I'm constantly amazed at the time, talent, and dedication that our residents give to all of these volunteer boards, because she's got a stellar background and career in, again, working with educational institutions and doing a lot of programming help for them. Actually, she worked with my sister at DT Watson, who's an administrator there. So again, thanks to Susan, and hopefully, again, we'll get a consistent package for agendas, for minutes, for onboarding materials for all of these boards, which we should have.
She's excited to help. She was like, how can I've got some time. How can I-"
She is very enthusiastic.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna take full advantage of that, so.
Great. Thanks, everybody. See you at 8 in the commission room.